The average cost of an Ivy League education has soared up to $88,000. And today, we're at Yale University in New Haven to see whether or not it's worth it. The pizza in the city is great, by the way. Now, before we dive in, what even is the Ivy League? Clearly, it's a collection of schools with the world's smartest students, right? See, that's what we think the Ivy League is, but that's not why it was formed. The Ivy League is the name given to the collegiate athletic conference that consists of Cornell, Dartmouth, Brown, UPenn, Columbia, Princeton, Harvard, and Yale. That's right, it's not a collection of nerds, it's a collection of jocks. But over time, the Ivy League has become synonymous with academic excellence. All 8 schools are at the top of the US News ranking, but my alma mater beats all of them, go MIT. With cutting-edge facilities, labs, and faculty, it makes sense why these schools rank so highly for everything, except for food. Though I've heard Yale's food is pretty good. Maybe we should go try. Anyways, it's easy to ignore these culinary shortcomings when you consider the caliber of faculty that's teaching here. You have people who've advised presidents, won Pulitzer Prizes, and built life-saving tech in their spare time. However, more impressive than the facilities or the faculty are the alumni, which include 500 Nobel laureates, 16 US presidents, and the one and only Gohar Khan, and soon-to-be Cheyenne Khan. So clearly these schools have both brain and brawn, but I'd like to add one more B into the mix: billions. These schools are filthy rich. They have massive endowments, which are funds that have been donated to a school. And colleges use this money to fund their scholarships, research, and other programs, but clearly not their dining halls. On the low end, you have Brown with a $6.2 billion endowment. And on the other end, you have Harvard with an endowment of $53.2 billion. If Harvard was on the Forbes list, get this, it would be the 28th richest person in the world. So then we get to the question that everyone is wondering. If these schools have billions of dollars in the bank, then why are they charging nearly $100,000 a year to attend? And more importantly, is it worth paying that much? Well, let's see what you get after spending all that money. First and most importantly, you now have the right to flex on the entire internet in your Instagram bio. And second, you get this single piece of paper right here. But this piece of paper, it's powerful. It's got aura. Without even vetting your experiences or qualifications, employers can assume the kind of person you are. Smart, hardworking, pretentious, obnoxious. I kid. They're just going to assume that you're some kind of genius. Now, is that unfair? 100%. I'm not here to argue that. But I do want to call out the weight that an Ivy League degree has. Now, this weight doesn't matter for plenty of roles. For example, some jobs care far more about your skills and relevant experiences. Doesn't matter if you graduated summa cum laude from Harvard, if you can't reverse a linked list, you're not getting that software engineering role. On the other hand, some industries glaze the prestige of your degree and care whether or not you went to a target school. I'm looking at you, McKinsey. But it's important to note this really only matters for entry-level positions. After a few years in industry, your college matters far less than your experience. You're not gonna go from associate to partner because you went to Harvard. You're gonna go from associate to partner because you know how to schmooze your way up the corporate ladder. However, there are some lasting benefits to an Ivy League education. You get access to an incredible network. Many of your peers will go on to become esteemed businessmen, scientists, politicians, and even YouTubers. Now, is such a network only accessible at Ivy League schools? Of course not. The world has plenty of schools with bright and ambitious people. But is such a network more easily accessible at an Ivy League school? I'd say so. So how much does this network cost exactly? The annual cost of an Ivy League ranges from $83K to $93K, and this includes tuition, room, and board, which low-key for a school like Yale might be worth it because these buildings are beautiful. Jokes aside though, the cost of college is a serious issue. Over the last 2 decades, the cost of private 4-year institutions has increased by 181.3%. After accounting for inflation. Meanwhile, the average income of American households has only increased by 15. Yet nearly 3 million students enroll into college for the first time each year, lured in by the promise that a degree will help them secure higher paying jobs. And that is true. Those who have a college degree tend to earn an additional $1.2 million over their lifetimes compared to those who don't. Of course, however, this largely depends on major and occupation. Unfortunately, the average starting salary for someone with a humanities degree is lower than someone with a STEM degree. But if that person with the humanities degree goes into a corporate role and that person with the STEM degree goes into an academic role, then the humanities major might actually earn more. All this is to say, run the numbers, determine the cost of the school you want to attend, your expected starting salary, and figure out the ROI of attendance. But before you grab your calculators, there's one other important number we haven't discussed yet: financial 8. But speaking of calculations that'll save you money, let me tell you about today's sponsor, Grammarly. Success at these prestigious schools isn't just about who you know. It's about how you communicate effectively with them. That's where Grammarly is super helpful. Whenever I'd email professors or advisors, I'd use Grammarly to ensure my communication was clear, professional, and error-free. It's not just about fixing typos. Grammarly helped me strike the right tone, whether I was requesting research opportunities or begging for an extension after procrastinating all weekend. For students drowning in research papers, Grammarly's auto citations feature is a genuine lifesaver. Just highlight text, click cite, and you'll get perfectly formatted citations in MLA, APA, or even Chicago style, which means you'll have time for whatever else college students do. But what's really impressive is their newest pro feature, Grammarly Authorship. It creates a detailed report showing exactly where your content originated, whether you typed it yourself, used AI assistance, or incorporated external sources. This is crucial when submitting academic work that needs to meet specific guidelines about AI usage. Authorship gives you a final authenticity check before submission, ensuring your work represents your true voice while maintaining academic integrity, something both professors and future employers will appreciate. Grammarly is a must-have for all students. Sign up and upgrade to Grammarly Pro for 20% off with the link in my description. Now let's get back to crunching the numbers. Now, financial aid makes the conversation more interesting. People on the internet love to complain about the Ivy League and bash on students, especially when it comes to cost. Have fun graduating with crippling debt. Bro needs to sell an arm and leg to attend. My youngest brother Cheyenne received plenty of these comments after he announced he got into Harvard. But most of you showed a lot of love, so thank you. Yet the reality is, many private institutions offer fantastic financial aid, with the Ivy League having some of the most generous packages. Harvard, for example, is tuition-free for families earning up to $200,000 a year. Princeton is similar. They have full financial aid for families earning up to $100K. Dartmouth also offers full aid to families under $125K. And Yale offers full aid to families under $75K. Of course, I don't want to make it seem like the Ivy League is affordable for everyone, which we'll get to in a bit. But let's run the actual numbers, shall we? Say you get into Harvard and your family makes under $50K a year. Great, you get full financial aid. In fact, not only will you pay nothing, but Harvard might actually pay you to go. If your aid is less than the cost of attendance, you might get money back. And I have seen students get thousands of dollars back. Of course, this isn't free money. It's meant to cover general living and educational expenses. But sometimes you might have some money left over. Okay, so let's say you receive such an amazing financial aid package that Harvard practically pays you to attend. And let's say you want to major in computer science. Wait, sorry, at Harvard they say concentrate in computer science, not major in. But unfortunately, by the time you graduate, the computer science market is cooked. You struggle to find a job that pays more than $60K, which, don't get me wrong, is solid, but it's below what you were expecting. You're in a position where you could receive any salary and still be ROI positive for attending Harvard or Yale or a bunch of these schools. Heck, let's say by the time you graduate, AI has taken over the world and replaced every single software engineer in the universe. You could have no job and still be ROI positive simply because of your financial aid refund. For many low-income students, an Ivy League degree is worth it and a viable way to climb up the socioeconomic ladder. However, I don't want to make it seem like it's the only way or even the best way. When it comes to upward mobility, a study finds that mid-tier public schools might be even better since they represent more students from low-income backgrounds. Research from economist Rod Chetty found that Ivy League schools enroll more students from the top 1% than from the bottom 50. Meanwhile, public institutions like SUNY Stony Brook and Cal State LA have higher rates of economic mobility given they enroll larger numbers of low-income students. But what about middle-class and upper-class students? How should they think about the Ivy League? Students from upper-class families can usually afford the full sticker price of an Ivy League education, in which case it's worth it. You get the name and don't have to put yourself under financial stress, which is great. But then you have students in the middle or upper middle class, and this is where it gets tricky. You'll get some financial aid, but probably not enough, so you'll have to take out some student loans. And if you don't think carefully about your post-grad plans, this debt can be tricky to pay off. If you fall into this bucket, you'll likely supplement whatever you receive with external merit-based scholarships. And I'll actually compile a list of the most popular ones and put them in the description of this video. But if after the aid and scholarships the numbers still don't make sense, then don't go. I know a number of students who have foregone the Ivy League for more affordable options. It's definitely not an easy decision, and it hurts. But I applaud these students because they have deeply considered their long-term financial health, which is far more important than having a flashy name on a resume. I remember learning about the Ivy League in middle school and promising myself that I'd go to one. Back then, I didn't even fully understand what it was or what the benefits would be. But as an overly ambitious 12-year-old, I just always wanted to push myself as much as I could. It's funny to think that nearly a decade and a half later, I didn't even go to one. I got into a handful, but chose MIT. In this video, we talked about the value of an Ivy League degree, and we didn't even touch upon Ivy League admissions, which I could yap about for hours. But here's what I'll say. Many of you watching this are probably ambitious, and many of you watching this probably want to go to the Ivy League, whether you're a middle schooler, a high schooler, or even a college student interested in transferring. And you know what? Give it a shot. Many students stray away from the Ivy League for one of two reasons. They don't think they're qualified, or they think it's too expensive. Look, you need to meet a certain academic threshold to be a viable candidate. Of course, there isn't a strict threshold, but you ideally want a 1500 plus on your SAT, close to a 4.0, and a super rigorous course load. But to those of you who have this and still don't want to apply because you haven't won any international awards or haven't cured cancer, just know that the vast majority of students haven't either. It's your narrative that matters more than anything. And to those of you deterred by cost, hopefully this video helped clear some of your fears. Get a fee waiver, open up the Common App, and do your absolute best. Get rec letters from teachers who can highlight your glowing qualities. Write activity descriptions that paint a clear, vivid picture of your ambitions and accomplishments. And write college essays that tug at the heartstrings of admissions officers. Which, if you need help with, by the way, check out Next Admit. And if you get in, congrats. Hopefully you get the aid and support you need to enjoy your 4 years among some of the most impressive minds in the world. Oh, and also some of the most impressive pizza.